back to the program, everyone. Today, Osun State dominates the conversations here on the Morning Brief. Let's get straight to it. Honorable Bamidele Salam is a member of the House of Reps. He's also the DG of the campaign for the governor-elect now. Mr. DG, sir, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us. DG Media and Publicity of the Adeleke's campaign. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us here on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
You're all smiles. You're all smiles, and I imagine it is joy unspeakable for you. Because
absolutely
months and months, 3 months of intensive campaigns. You were here on this platform on numerous occasions, and all of that. So congratulations, perhaps absolutely in order for you and your team.
Thank you.
So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Walk us through the playbook or your master plan. How did you get this done, you and your team?
All right. Well, the first is for us to return all the glory and the thanksgiving to the Almighty God, the one who does all things, the one who has who enthrones. And also to really commend the very gallant people of Osun State. If I tell you there's any magic behind this victory apart from God and the people of Osun, I'll be telling you a lie. The people of Osun have been very gallant, they have been very determined, they have been very committed. They have shown that they can actually stand by whatever they believe in. This is actually the history of the people of Osun. If you remember very well, year 2014, when Governor Adeleke was also seeking a re-election, we had something very similar, although not as intense as what we had this time around. So I want to give it to the people of Osun State. The governor, one, made sure that he did not disappoint the confidence that they reposed in him when they elected him in 2022. He made sure that he lived by the expectations, by impacting on lives of people of Osun in every nook and cranny of the state. And they, in return, also decided that they wanted him to continue to be their governor, and they resisted all the pressure, the intimidation, all the threats, all the inducements that was brought in against the return of the governor. So I want to say that the master stroke actually is that the people stood their ground to defend democracy, to stand with the governor, and to ensure that they vote and their vote counts. So, that is where the real credit must actually go.
So, Honorable, should we say now that INEC is unbiased, is fair, has come to the party for the people to trust the democratic institution, part of which INEC is a significant part of, how do I put this question differently now? Because we've seen voters, follow their votes. They watched the vote when it was counted. We've also seen them follow the vote all the way to the collation centers and all of that. On one hand, people are saying that is lack of trust in the process. Now that this result is out, should we say we are confident in INEC?
Well, let me tell you, there's this quote that says the eternal price of liberty is vigilance. The truth, and this is the frank truth about our country, is that we have not built institutions that can be trusted. It's very sad, but that's the truth. INEC, police, whatever institution you talk about, we have not built any institution. I'm not sure there's one that can be entirely trusted to live up to expectations. Yes, I will give it to the national chairman of the INEC, Professor Josh Amupiton. Only God sees the heart of man, but sincerely speaking, each time he engaged with stakeholders, each time he spoke about the governor's election in Osun, I see in him a man who actually wanted to prove a point. I see in him a man who meant what he said. But he's just one man. The chairman is just one man. So when you come down, to all the structures of INEC, there are quite a number of people who ordinarily will have caved into the kind of pressure that they were under. People who will have done things untoward, who will have done things to derail the process at one point or the other. But like I said, it is the people, who decided that they were going to be vigilant. They were going to stay all through, no matter what it cost. I had never before stayed throughout collation process in my polling unit. I'm talking of the unit I stayed in my unit until the votes were counted with all my people. I moved together with them to my ward, showing leadership, so that everybody who voted stayed at the collation center. The same thing to the local government, and then finally at the state, collation center. So I think the price of liberty is vigilance. When people are vigilant, they are able to put systems and structures and institutions on check. It is unfortunate we have not been able to build that kind of institution that you can just go home and sleep with your two eyes closed, that the judiciary, the parliament, the executive, and all the institutions of government will do right. Unfortunately, we have not. So, but like I said, the chairman of INEC, whom we interacted with at certain fora, who spoke about the preparedness of the commission, giving commitment. What I saw in him was a man who wanted to do things right, and I must be very fair to him as a person. But that does not mean anything. Only God knows the true intent of man. But I said that the people's vigilance is what actually made this institution called INEC to live up to the expectations of the public.
Honorable Salam, well, I don't know how you're going to respond to the reports around vote buying and incentives. There are those who say, people paid 50,000 naira, 20,000 naira, 2,500 naira, and all of that. So it's more like a case of the highest bidder. So confirm for us how much Accord Party paid. And then my second question to you, Honorable Salam, would be, in terms of strategy, we hear that your party perhaps took advantage of the cracks in the APC. For instance, the missionary factor, we hear that he collapsed his structure into a court party. Perhaps he didn't come out openly to say that he was supporting your party, but it looks like you guys took advantage of the cracks in the APC. Is that correct, please?
So let me start off with the issue of the vote buying, and I thank God that the channel television had its crew on ground. I saw Shimon Kimbaloi and a few other of your crew members around who went from one local government to the other, and other television stations. And you can ask, Accord Party never spent 1 naira on that election day. The other party, threw caution to the wind. I have never seen an election that is so monetized like we had on Saturday. In my own polling unit, they were sharing up to 30,000 naira, 50,000 naira, and the same thing happened almost everywhere in the state. In fact, we had intelligence about when they brought in this heavy cash on the eve of the election. Alerted the police, alerted the security agencies. Only very few of the security agencies took any step. That was what happened in Ward 10 of my local government, where they seized cash and arrested persons who were distributing money. And again, you will remember that very viral video of what happened in the Jibo local government. That's also my federal constituency, where citizens took it upon themselves to enforce the law against vote buying, and went into a particular house where they were, sharing money, and seized wads of naira notes and voters card, which the APC, was deploying in the Jibo. I think this is the video of that place, where they seized that cash. Citizens took it upon themselves when the security personnel refused blatantly. In fact, whenever anybody complained to them that who were buying, they would say, well, that's not their business. They are here to maintain the peace. They never took any action. We never found the EFCC team, anywhere enforcing, the law against vote buying. But in spite of all that, I'm sure that was exactly what brought down that margin to that, to that extent, because in highly populated places like Oshogbo, Ile-Ife, and so on, they went as far as 70,000 naira per vote. Very brazen, very, very shameful. Now, coming to the second part of the question on whether we took advantage of the crack in the APC, of course, we are politicians, and that is one of the strategies of a good, of good politics everywhere in the world, that you study the weakness of your opponent and you take advantage of them. We saw from the beginning the choice of their candidates. The process that led to the choice of that candidate was very undemocratic, was very divisive, and they never took any concrete step to even do any genuine reconciliation. That was worsened by the way the APC took and picked candidates for the National Assembly, for the state houses of assembly. People who won primaries for the state house of assembly, in many local governments were changed, arbitrarily by the party. And as smart politicians, we had to come in and take advantage of that. Even though, His Excellency Otoba Yola Mishode never joined our party and never issued any statement to say he was supporting us. Members of his group, of course, came out in their large numbers to the accord, believing that they had been cheated and that we should join together to rescue this state from those who do not mean well for the state. So, to answer that question, I answer in the affirmative. We took advantage of the cracks in the APC, which is the sensible thing, the smart thing for any politician, to do. And we thank God that it paid off for us as a political party.
So a quick follow-up to that, and that's before I come in with my main question. Does that mean that had you not taken advantage of that particular gap, in the camp of the APC, the election could have gone either way? Does it mean that Governor Adeleke would not have won by that margin, or that the election could have gone either way to the APC or to the Accord Party? That's on the one hand. On the other hand, about vote buying, there are reports that the Accord Party also induced voters with a minimal sum of 2,500 naira.
Oh, no. Let me start with the last one. Absolutely, we did not induce any voter. Like I said, observers and those who went on ground knew those who were involved in vote buying, and those were the APC party men. They actually had the money. You don't forget that in Osun State they have seized our funds, local government fund, for almost 2 years now. Apart from the support that the Adelekes personally had to give to the party to run the campaign, there's even no that kind of money that you can take around and start dishing out money to voters on election day. But the goodwill, which is what counts even far more than money, is always there. Now, to the first part of the question on whether, if we had not taken advantage of the crack within the APC, we would have won. Yes, absolutely, the governor will have won. Anyone who did a survey in Osun in the last 1.5 years, in the last 2 years, on the probable outcome of this governorship election, will tell you most sincerely that Governor Adeleke is immensely popular, immensely loved by the people. He is one governor, who, how do I put it, has not really been, gubernatorial in quotes. He doesn't carry himself like most Nigerian politicians, most big men in power carry themselves, putting themselves out of the reach of the common man. Governor Adeleke is one man you will find in the most unlikely places, in the market, in the school, you just find him everywhere, joking with people, playing with them, dancing with them. And this is what the average person wants. And in addition to that, he feels the pulse of the people, and he's a compassionate leader. He's a man who feels the pain of the people and determined that he was going to impact on them using the opportunity of being the governor of the state. So there is this bond between him and the people of Osun, between him and the traditional rulers, between him and the Islamic leaders, the Christian leaders. He's just everywhere. He goes to the mosque, you see him, praying, you see him amongst them, in the Ramadan period, beating the Bandari Islamic drum. You see him in church the next time, he's praise worshiping God, he's rolling on the floor, and he's not pretentious about it. That is just who he is. He's a man who is very free with everyone. So even if we had not had those cracks within the APC, and we had gone all out on this campaign, he still will have emerged victorious in this governorship election.
Let's go to another very significant fallout of this victory, which is Governor Adeleke restating his commitment to President Tinubu in the 2027 elections, his loyalty. And we heard over the weekend, after the declaration of the victory of the Accord Party, your camp debunking any agreement with the APC. Is that really, the case, and the Accord Party camp is just trying to deflect from that particular agreement with the APC? Is that the reason the president has congratulated Governor Adeleke on this victory? Is there an agreement between both camps for the Accord Party to vote the president in the 2027 election?
Okay, let me state this very categorically today on this TV. I am not aware that there was any agreement anywhere between the Accord and the APC to support the president, re-election. When you talk about agreement, you talk about two groups sitting together to draw up terms of working together. Of course, if there had been an agreement, you wouldn't have this kind of very vile, opposition that we had in Osun. You wouldn't have this kind of very tense campaign that we had, very rancorous electioneering process. You remember very well the leader of the APC in Osun, the Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, came on air to say that even if you endorse us 10 times, we will still snatch this governorship from you. He was very unfazed about it. He said, it doesn't matter. Don't go about saying you endorse us, you endorse the president. That having been said, the Adeleke is that I know are men and women of honor. Now, you will remember that on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr festival about over a year ago, the governor and his elder brother and Davido went to meet with the president in Lagos to rejoice with him on the festival when he came on break. And at that point, at that forum, they told the president that they believe very strongly that the process of the principle of power rotation between the north and the south must be respected. And because this is a southerner who is the sitting president, who is just about to complete 4 years, it is only fair that he be supported to return. And the governor, every occasion he says this, even though there are some party men who are not very comfortable with this, but as the leader of the party, people respect him. And he tells them, well, I have told the president we are going to do this. No, don't mind the fact that, they have been very, very desperate. They have been very, vileful. They have been very vindictive. Let's just, honor the word we have given unto them. So the the governor of Osun, Adeleke, is only being true to himself by saying, well, I had given this man my word that in Nigeria we have a principle of a north-south power rotation. The president today is from the southern part of the country. He is also particularly from the southwest. Has some, historical link with Osun State. Let's honor the word we have given him. But in terms of talking about agreement, anybody who says that is being deceptive. There's no such agreement. If there was an agreement, you will not have the APC coming with 30-something governors, with all their senators and everyone, and posting that they were going to start. And they tried it up till 1 a.m. Up till 1 a.m. of the 16th of August. They were still strategizing, putting pressure on INEC, giving various options, declare the election inconclusive, to take away this vote, do this, do that, up till 1 a.m. before, all plans cracked. And that was when the president stepped in to call the governor and say, well, you know what, congratulations, I've gotten a report that, the election is concluded. That was when, all their foot soldiers and top leaders who were in Osun began to leave Osun one after the other in accordance with the word of the Lord. The Lord has told us that as they came, they will leave shamefully. And we thank God Almighty, and we thank the people of Osun. We thank God for confirming his word, and we thank the people of Osun State for standing by the governor. So there was no such agreement, but the governor, in his own nature, and the nature of the Adelekes, believed that they should support the cause of a southern president, the cause of a Yoruba president, and that was why the governor continues to push this narrative. Every time he has an opportunity to speak about 2027.
So let me ask a political question. Did APC lose this election, or did they come just to make an impression ahead of 2027, if you get my drift? That's question number one. Question number two, there are more concerns in terms of governance. The APC is still running the local government, and it's been a very tumultuous relationship between the state and the local government in terms of funding and payment of teachers' salary. What is the conversation going forward?
Thank you very much. Very, very important question, but let me quickly take the first part. Of course, the APC lost this election. They lost this election because they are not on ground, they are not acceptable, they are not popular. they had 12 years of governance in Osun, and every stratum of this state has a very, very sad story to tell about those 12 years of governance of the APC in Osun. So they lost this election, clear and simple. Now let me come to the second part. The second part is one of the most painful trajectory of our political, system in Nigeria. Now you talk about the local government system. What is the fact about the local government system? The local government system in Osun is a product of the Nigerian Constitution. It's a product of the law. And as we speak, there are three major judgments of the court. The Federal High Court judgment, the Court of Appeal judgment, nullifying the so-called election held by Mr. Boyega Oyetola after he lost his re-election in 2022, a hurriedly packaged election, nullified by court of competent jurisdiction. The only reason why they continue to occupy those local governments was because they believe in their federal might. A compromised police system, very, very sad. A compromised police system that had judgment of the courts that they ought to enforce, but threw it away and stood ground protecting illegal occupants of local government in Osun, whose election have been nullified. Now let me tell you the last one that happened very recently, just about 6 weeks ago. These same people went back to the Federal High Court to tell the Federal High Court that the Federal Court should pronounce that they had a tenure which had not expired. The Federal High Court, sitting in Osogbo about 6 weeks ago, gave a judgment and categorically stated that the occupant of local government secretariat in Osun had no subsisting tenure, that if any, that tenure had expired since the month of October 2025. You know what? This judgment was served on the police. In fact, the governor personally handed over a copy to the Inspector General of Police in my presence to the IGP when he came to Osun. This is a court judgment that says this book cannot. Please enforce this judgment. As today, that judgment is still being disregarded by the Nigeria police. So that was what has put pressure on the state government, that the governor, believing that one of the things they wanted to achieve was that he would not be able to pay local government salary and staff salary, primary school teacher salary, basic health care provider salaries, decided that every month he was taking from the state government allocation to pay these people, because the funds meant for local government have been seized and warehoused in the UBA. The government went to court, got a judgment compelling the UBA to release this money to democratically elected local government chairman. The UBA refused because the UBA management was afraid of federal might also coming heavily on them. This is part of the impunity that we have endured for these years. This is part of the abuse of power, abuse of position that we have endured, only because we have a minister in Osun who has a relationship with the president and who boasts about that relationship every time he speaks to his party members as the reason why things will not be done in accordance with the law, in accordance with the Nigerian Constitution. We are hoping that now that the election, that they were doing all these things because they believe they will use that to cripple government and win sympathy and then weaken the governor and the party and win the election. Now the election has come and gone. Adeleke has won his re-election for another 4 years beginning from November. We do hope that now reason will prevail. We do hope now that the rule of law indeed will prevail in Osun rather than the rule of man, and they will allow the third tier of government, the local government system, to run as it should, release funds for local government to the state, so that things will continue to go, as it should.
Yeah. You said the rule of law has prevailed, and you know you're a lawyer, and the APC is already considering legal actions. You know how in this part of the world, if victory does not stop at the polls, on the ballot, it has to go to the courts. I hope you and your party are gearing up for that.
Well, it is within their right to go to court. We cannot deny them of that right, but we want to tell them that wherever they go, they will fail. They will certainly fail. Adeleke will still prevail. The accord will prevail. The governor will be sworn in November, and by the mercy of God, he will rule for another 4 years, and he will do much more than he had done in the first term to improve on the fortune of this very wonderful state. I can give you that assurance, my dear brother.
All right. Honorable Bamidele Salam is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also the chairman, Media and Publicity Adeleke Campaign Organization. He's also a lawyer and journalist. I hope you still remember being a journalist, Honorable. For those who don't know.
I do, and I'm very proud of that. I miss the media. It's a very great field to work in.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again to you and your team.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right.